Hi, this is Rabbi Rami Goldberg, and welcome to Biblical Money, powered by Israel 365, where we take a deep dive into how people of faith enhance their business by staying true to their biblical principles. We interview leading CEOs, executives, and entrepreneurs to capture their wisdom to help us live our most fulfilled and faithful lives. Please like and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date and informed. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Biblical Money. I am your host, Rabbi Rami Goldberg, and I'm here today with back in Lubbock. I think this is our third interview from Lubbock, Texas over here. It seems like a lot of spirituality and a lot of good business people coming out of Lubbock. We have Mr. James Jordan from Addison Homes, a home builder, and I'd love to hear a bit about your story and how you've built not only homes, but built God's kingdom here in this world through the work that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Rabbi Rami. Sure. So yeah, you mentioned Lubbock. Lubbock is we are certainly, I feel very fortunate and blessed to be able to live in Lubbock. It is a unique place in that as a Christian, we're, I guess people say the buckle of the Bible Belt, is through this part of the United States. And we are certainly fortunate in Lubbock to be able to live, walk out a Christian life, even in the business world, and not really even have to worry too much about being scrutinized or any kind of, be attacked in any kind of way for doing that. So we're fortunate in that. And so, so Addison Homes is a business that my wife and I started nearly 9 years ago. This coming March will be 9 years. And there is a testimony there that, started for me as a kid long time ago. I was thinking about this just even this morning. I was thinking, man, how far back did business and my faith get mixed together, because it's such a strong part of my life at this point. And, I was thinking back, when did that really start? And interestingly enough, so part of my personal life is that my parents divorced when I was in like the 6th grade. And so my birth father, though, and then my birth father kind of left the picture for an extended period of time, so long that my brother and I didn't think we would ever see him again. So our stepdad, my mom had remarried my stepdad, adopted my brother and I. But growing up as a young kid, my dad had a custom cabinet shop, and he built a few homes as well. And so I grew up around that. And my first job ever was sweeping sawdust in my dad's cabinet shop. I was like 9 years old. And interestingly enough, I look back and I was thinking about this. So my dad's business was named JLU Builders. And the JLU stood for Jesus Loves You. And so my dad was, even though I was young, I was very young at the time, he was influential in my faith, getting started at an early age. He was the worship leader at our church, was very, just involved in our church and just creating a household that was faith-centered, God-centered.
Yeah, so important to have that with your parents, to be the ones to really, kind of set you on that way and those early memories.
Yeah, and so I didn't really realize, I've never connected that dot, but I realized, even since a kid, I knew that God was part of business from the time I was really, really young. And then fortunately enough, I made that decision. I remember, graduating high school thinking, okay, am I going to go to seminary, or am I going to go the traditional business route in college? What am I going to do? I decided to go the business route. And I didn't know at the time, of course, as a Christian, I wanted to continue to live out my faith in everything that I did. But I didn't, you never know. Even today, we don't know what path he has us on. I have this perspective where God's given us a certain amount of vision, right? We can see, like I can reasonably see to tomorrow. I think I know what tomorrow's going to hold, right? I think I know what next week is going to hold, or in the next 6 months. So he's given us this ability to kind of see a little bit into the future, or plan for certain things. And, I call it this horizon principle. And a friend of mine, it actually came from a software development mentality, but it applies to us, I think, in our faith and how we live out our faith. We can see off into the distance to a certain extent, like driving your car down the highway, you can see a good distance, right? You can see a couple of miles out in front of you. So you know what's coming, essentially. But beyond the horizon, beyond what you can see, you don't know exactly what's coming your way. And I feel like that's kind of the way God has set us up. He gives us the ability to see, predict. He wants us to live our lives a certain way, the Bible talks about the wisdom of the ant because it prepares for the next season, right? But we don't actually know what that next season is going to hold for us completely, because beyond the horizon that's God's territory, right? I mean, it's all his territory, but beyond the horizon is fully his territory because we cannot see it, and we shouldn't be planning for it. We need to be planning for today, our today's daily bread, and do the best that we can today with what we have, with what God's entrusted to us, and with what we know or what we might expect to happen in the reasonably near future. But we've got to use our faith to depend on God to provide for us in all things, but specifically beyond the horizon, because we don't have an idea of what is actually coming our way. God is the one who's orchestrating that.
It's interesting that you talk about like the horizon and like, okay, I can reasonably see into the future. I sometimes look and I'm like, that's like a false sense of security to a certain extent, that I think that I could see into the future. And all of a sudden it's like, no, tomorrow is not the same. I mean, we're obviously living in Israel, and on October 5th, right before the attack, I was in Sderot, which Sderot is the town that's on the border between Israel and Gaza. And 2 days later, there's this attack. And I just kind of thought, like, if you would have asked me what's going to be 2 days later, I would have said, yeah, we're just going to have our regular Shabbat, which is, that was the day. And so I sometimes think that we have this kind of false sense of security, and we need to have even more kind of reliance on God and recognize, no, it's not, we think we see into the future. We think we can look down that road, and so it's interesting. Meaning, I'm coming at it from a little bit of a different perspective, saying, but if you think that way, you're going to go neurotic. If you don't feel that you can see down the road, you're just going to be like a mess, which I think is the other side to this whole thing.
Right. Well, I've thought about that. I've thought about people in third world countries where you don't know if you're going to be provided for tomorrow. You don't know if you're going to get a meal tomorrow. So for sure, some of that perspective will definitely be affected by where you live, and outside influences, for sure. But yeah, correct. You can't live in doubt continually, because you would go neurotic. That's part of my testimony is discovering that along the way. So, I was saying I had to make that decision when I was what direction I was going to go in college. And again, I didn't really know to what level my faith was going to be integrated into the business world. I just wanted to, in my heart, I knew that I had a faith calling on my life, and that there was more. God had, more plans for my life than just to go get a job and, have a family and just live out a typical, standard type faith life. There was just something I knew that there was a calling on my life from a ministry perspective. And so, that worked itself out over time. And fortunately enough, or maybe by God's plan, I was able to become connected with a home builder here in Lubbock. And I worked there for nearly 10 years. And when I got there, it was a company that had a reputation in the community for being a faith-led organization. And I knew that, and that was part of the draw for me going to it. Because quite literally, it's interesting, when I was kind of in a career transition, I'd been in the restaurant business, and I'd helped a friend open up a restaurant. Quite literally, I was working anywhere from 80 to 100 hours a week in this restaurant business. And I needed a career change. I had a young family at home, and that wasn't really conducive to that. And so I said, God, help me, because I don't even have enough time really to honor my commitment here in my current job and look for another for the next step in my career. And so God said, hey, or I felt like God led me to these two companies that are both based in Lubbock, and one of them is a home building company in a very again faith-led company, faith-centered organization. And so I was lucky enough to get hired on with Beaton Bow Homes, and it was probably, I'd have to sit down and maybe write some things down, but it was certainly in the probably top 3, 4 things in my life that occurred that have changed the trajectory, the direction of my life. It was such an impactful thing for me to be able to be in that environment and really not just have a desire to honor the ministry calling that God puts on your life, but to see it get worked out in the marketplace, and get to be a part of orchestrating that. First of all, learning it, and then becoming an active part of it, and then learning how to orchestrate that. And it was, again, one of the most impactful things in my life. And so I got to spend 10 years in that environment where we were a home building company, but we really thought of ourselves as a ministry that supports itself instead of through donations and asking for, raising funds in the traditional ministry type way. We raised funds through home building.
What did they do in this place that was so impactful? That's amazing. A lot of times people find that, when they're in school, that's going to be, where they have these inspirational teachers. But you sounds like you went out to the workforce, and that was to a certain extent a more religious or faithful or a spiritual experience than what you were learning in school, where you might have actually been studying Bible more regularly as opposed to out in the workforce. So I'm curious, what did they do? What was their secret sauce that really inspired you?
The secret sauce was an authentic desire to serve the Lord in your business. They were, from the top down, from the leadership of the company, the founders. It's interesting. It was a father and son duo that founded the company, but it was the son that was but it was him who was really the leader of the organization. The father was kind of, a second seat behind the son, and he was just very passionate about serving the Lord and being just a very disciplined follower of the Lord. And so, there was nothing in the company that was off limits to what we felt like what the Lord's. We were trying to walk out the Lord's plan in our business. And so in all of our discussions, any type of decision making that was made was, based on biblical principles. If we could tie it to a biblical principle, our discussions about decisions about, either the decision might be, what were we going to do? How are we going to handle a certain customer? Or the decision might be, what were we going to do for our employees as a benefit? Or how were we going to sow into our employees? And all of those discussions and all of those efforts were discussed, from a biblical perspective. And it was just when you get to it, when you go to let's say like I've been parts of different types of men's groups, affiliated with churches and, some not affiliated with churches. But when you get together and you talk about, scripture, and you discuss what God was thinking about that and why that's in scripture and how can we apply that to our lives. Those are the things that you typically, those are discussions that you typically have in small group type settings or in a very, biblical focused settings. Well, those were discussions that we had about all of our business principles. Why are we doing that? Why should we do that for our customer? Why should we do that for our employees? Why should we do that for each other? So it was every decision we made was scripturally based, scripturally led.
Was there disagreement? Like
Oh
what,
yeah, absolutely.
you're like, well, we should do this because Abraham did this, and we should do this because, Moses acted that way or Jesus acted the other way. Like there definitely are different models that we have within the Bible.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so you could see someone bringing different examples from different people.
It was always the leadership group that we had was we were always extremely transparent with each other, and so yeah, absolutely. We would listen to each other's different opinions or points of view, and we'd have vigorous discussion. It was not always easy to come to a conclusion. And so, absolutely, there was real discussion about it.
Give me a real challenge that you have faced in your career that you were able to either overcome or not overcome, but meaning that has challenged your biblical principles that and I guess caused you to rethink something, or caused you to whether or not you were successful or not. You don't have to share that, but maybe a ethical question that might have come up.
Goodness gracious. So we have, here's something about home building. When we build a home for someone, especially if we, take on what we would consider like a custom build from start to finish, where we have a customer involved in the architectural plans, and then they're involved in all the selections from the very beginning all the way through construction until the end. That's a lengthy process. We can't do that. It's not the same as walking into, Best Buy, which is an electronics, store here in the U.S. I'm not sure if you have that particular store there, but I know you're probably familiar.
We don't have it here, but I'm very familiar with it.
Sure.
Yeah.
You walk in to buy a television, and you can walk out 30 minutes or an hour later and have this television that, you've picked, you've looked at all your options, and you get to walk out the door with it. And it's very transactional, in home building, it's totally different. It's relational, from beginning to end. And so, during that, let's say it could take up to a year, and it could even take longer than that. That whole process from beginning, when you first start building a relationship with a customer, all the way to the point that you hand them the keys, and then they're going to move into that home. And so, it could be a year-long process or longer. And so, I can promise you during that year, we, myself included, are likely to make some mistakes on that customer's, somewhere on the plans or during the construction, somewhere along the way, because we have not just us, but the guys that are out there in the field, the people we are contracting to do the work. Maybe the electrician, maybe he's there overseeing the work, but he's got a new guy on his crew, and the new guy makes a mistake. And so, we're going to catch that. So, sometimes we catch it personally ourselves. Sometimes our customers catch it. And so, for one, we have to be very humble through that whole process, because we're not going to be perfect, and we can't pretend to be, right? So when those situations come up, sometimes you have circumstances where, because we're dealing with different personalities, sometimes we're dealing with someone who is, for lack of a better term, to use some layman terms, making a mountain out of a molehill, or, very picky about something for some reason that really, as a home builder, as an industry expert, having been doing this for years, we can see that, hey, we really shouldn't do it that way, but they want something done a certain way. Or a warranty experience. If someone says, hey, I want you to handle this, it should be covered under warranty. Well, black and white, it may not be covered under warranty. And that's probably, I'll give an example. We had one particular customer, and she really helped us coin this phrase. She really helped pull this out of us. She was a widow, single woman, older, and very smart, very intelligent, but being a single woman for the latter part of her life, I think I think people had tried to take advantage of her somewhere in the past, and so and she was very tough. I mean, she was people use the term tough cookie. She was very tough minded, and in ways she was difficult to deal with. Um, but it helped us because we want to be pro customer. We want to be customer first. And so some of the things that she would really challenge us on were some of the things we couldn't accommodate her on. But what we wanted to do in discussion was we wanted to accommodate as much as we possibly could for her. And likewise with all of our customers, we want to accommodate as much as we possibly can for them. And so what that means is there's going to be circumstances, and we run across these circumstances a lot. And there were several with this particular customer along the way that we had to decide to choose her side or our side. And so it helped us determine and kind of put this concept into words, which is we are going to choose our customer's side every chance we can, as long as it is reasonable to do so. So we're going to prefer our customer's point of view or our customer side. We're going to choose to try to take their perspective and put their put their benefit above our own, essentially. And so we apply that during the build process, and we apply that during the warranty process of our homes, as long as it's reasonable to do so. If someone's asking us to do something that's going to cost us $10,000 to do, we're going to sit down and discuss that, right? If it's a couple $100, we're going to do it, no questions asked. As a matter of fact, the way our field team and our warranty team and all the guys that we have, even our sales team, the way that we've instructed them to determine sometimes, what to do is they don't have to come to me to get my permission to do something for a customer. Okay. They do not have to have my permission to say yes. They have to have my permission to tell a customer no. Because if you're about to tell the customer no, then we need to talk about it, because it could be the right thing to do. We might really need to tell the customer no. If we're going to do that, we need to talk about how to tell the customer no, because we want them to know that we're not doing that for our own gain. We're doing that for reasons that are going to benefit them, maybe in ways that they don't understand. And so, so we've established kind of those practices and principles, because our heart is for our customer. And just like the Father's heart is for us, is despite all the things, despite our past, our history, he's essentially we wake up each morning with a new slate.
For sure. So have you had, let's say, situations with employees? You obviously have a fair number of employees that didn't go so well, that were really challenging, that really pushed you and forced you to have second thoughts and maybe want to say a not nice word about them, but and had you resolve that, both internally and with any of employees that you might have had a tough situation with?
Sure. Oh gosh, we've had employee issues. Sure, we've had to terminate a couple of employees along the way, unfortunately, and we've had employees that were obviously, sometimes you discover an employee that's just not the right fit, and for various reasons. I'll tell you, without going into a lot of detail, I can tell you we had a circumstance with an employee who, over time we started to think we were getting some hints about maybe an alcohol problem, and then we got a couple of pieces of confirmation about that, and we started to get a couple confirming things, and then we got one great big confirming thing that happened, and when we had to part ways with that person, it was we did it in love. It wasn't, I mean, not that we wanted to part ways with them. It was a circumstance that we couldn't avoid, you know, and and we love that person even after they've left. We actually provided some counseling for them. So we reached out to a Christian counselor that I know personally and said, hey, look, we've got this person, that I think could benefit from some counseling. We had conversations with them, as part of the termination process. We said, hey, look, we still care about you and we still love you and we still want the best for you. We just can't work together every day anymore, you know. And so here's here's something that we think you could benefit from, and we'd be glad to pay for the first few visits that you can go out and meet and talk with a counselor, and hopefully get some, maybe if you feel get some traction with that, you can continue counseling with this person. But we'd love nothing more than to see you overcome this challenge, and at some point down the road, because they were, actually their performance was really good as an employee. But hey, go conquer this, and we want to help you, kind of get you going in the right direction, and go conquer this. And if you conquer it, come back in a year or so. Let us know how it's going, and maybe there'll be future opportunities. But we loved them when they were here. We loved them through the process of termination, and we continue to love them and reach out and have points of contact with them, and check in. And so I think in that particular case, it's unfortunate that I don't think um, they've conquered their issue at this point, but it's something that uh, you know, we've remained their friend, and we have continued to try to pour into them and help them, move forward in their lives.
Have you had anyone leave your business and start a competing business? Is that something that you've had to deal with, or a challenge that's come up?
Well, it sort of, which, hey, in my eyes, that's okay. Part of having an abundant mindset is that, hey, remember, God's our provider, right? We're not we don't have success necessarily because of our own actions and efforts, and because we're so smart, we know how to figure things out. Yes, God calls us to use wisdom, and be smart about things. So we have to do those things, but God's our provider. And so part of, when you understand that, it's not that's a much smaller hurdle or a much smaller pill to swallow when you have someone that leaves and says, I'm going to go build some homes. And so, yeah, we had a guy who that was his plan when he left, to go build a couple of homes. And I think he did. He on a very limited scale. He was also an architect. So, I think he may have built a project or two, and then he resorted back to doing architecture work. And we've actually used him a couple times for jobs, for architect work, and maintain a healthy relationship with him. And so, yeah, that's happened. And, that was my story at Beat and Bow Homes. When I left, I said, hey, I feel like God's calling me to do this. And, I actually tried to resist it, for as long as I possibly could. When God put it on my heart, it took probably, in around the 9 months, and for that to come to fruition. But it was something that I had to go into to Rick Beatonbow and say, look, I feel like God's calling me to do this. And as a brother in Christ, he was, we were brothers first and foremost before we were, co-workers. And anyway, he was nothing but supportive. As a matter of fact, when we started Addison Homes, he and I would meet for coffee, at 6 o'clock in the morning. He'd give me business advice. and just life advice. And so he continued to be a mentor of mine for years after that. And I have that same mindset. It's not God can provide for all of us.
Yeah, I think it's so important because, all too often we kind of get stuck in our kind of very narrow narrow thinking and not have that broad thinking. There's in my community, in the same synagogue that I pray in, there is another charity. I mean, I collect for one charity, which is one community, and this is kind of a bigger charity. And I always tell the other guy, and we're good friends. We actually grew up together. There's plenty to go around. This pie can be made significantly larger. It's not a matter of, if they don't give to me, they'll give to you. And said, I'd love nothing more than for us to both be massively successful, because it's good for the community. So it's like always that abundant mindset that yes, God can provide in a major, in a major way. So I think that's, it's amazing, and we need constant reminders of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Align yourself with what you feel like the Lord's called you to do, and go do it, right? And be bold about it. Be bold in your faith, and we're all called to do that.
Yeah, I mean, to bring what we're supposed to do. I mean, Genesis 1, that we are put in the garden to guard it and to work and to guard, right? And that means bringing our particular skills to the to the world. I was speaking to a certain woman that she had a certain business that she was going into, and she felt bad about charging for it, but she knew that she had more training than most other people. And I turned to her, I said, you have a requirement to go out there. If you think you're the best person to do this, if you have the most training, if you are the most skilled at this, then by not going out there and creating a business, and by not charging fair market value, you are not bringing God's potential into this world as he has put it through you. So and the person was like, didn't think about it in that way. Just thought, okay, a much more, meek type of thing. And I said, no, you have a responsibility. It's not nothing short of that.
Yeah, absolutely. We have opportunities that come along, and God's given me a heart towards, or a soft heart towards. We have circumstances where sometimes we'll have, like a single mother that'll come along and need a home. And we will work as diligently as we can to provide a home for them. Even if it means that we do it at maybe a little lower margin to fit their budget, but we'll work hard to do that. Now on all of our other projects, we can't apologize for being profitable, and for running a business the right way. Part of, if business is a ministry field, a business does have to be successful to continue to exist. And you have to be profitable enough to reinvest in your business, to reinvest in your people, so that in God's kingdom, in the garden example, things grow, things flourish. And in the business world, that's the same. Your business should be growing and flourishing. And so, we don't apologize for being profitable. We need to be profitable so that we can continue to grow and do things. And I do think it's one thing that's unique. Businesses are unique in that, everything in God's kingdom, that's living, for like ourselves or plants or animals, they have a lifespan. We're all growing to a certain point, and then our bodies start to deteriorate at a certain point, and we die eventually. Businesses are unique in the fact that they can grow. They can go from generation to generation, and a kingdom-minded business can have an impact. Can have a long-lasting impact. in the marketplace and in God's kingdom. So it's a, I think it's a tool that God orchestrated to be that way.
Yeah, I always, I always think when it comes to my business and or any of our businesses that are profitable and successful, it's not just the employees that are being affected. It's concentric circles. It's their families, and then from the schools that they're paying for, and the grocery shopping, and everything that continues to build out, and all from that one business has a massive ripple effect on hundreds or even thousands of people, because we were able to do something to help another person.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yep. Yeah. If you sit down and you try to put pen to paper and think about the number of lives that are affected, or the number of tables that have food on their table every night, and how many mouths are fed, it's a lot. And so yeah, business is it's you know it's unique in that way. And so yeah, absolutely.
And unlike, let's say, something like charity, and we all give charity, but very often the for-profit stuff that you're doing is way more impactful than the nonprofit. We just, we kind of had this bug in our head that, no, if I do nonprofit or ministry work, then I'm doing something good for the world. But if it's business work,
right,
there's not so much. It doesn't quite do it.
It's such the opposite. The truth is such the opposite, isn't that? There's certain things in this world that society has kind of programmed us to believe, and man, I love biblical principles because they are they're so revelational, especially for some things that you might learn or experience for the first time. And having grown up in a Christian household and in that type of a way, it's in some way I'm a little bit jealous of the person who doesn't find their faith or put their faith in God until somewhere in their adult life, or in their late 20s or early 30s or something like that, and their eyes are almost instantly open to a whole new world, and how exciting and that could be for someone. So in some ways I'm a little bit jealous of that.
Well, we actually have a concept that the rabbi said, that the place that a repentant person stands, another person won't stand. That a person who returns, we call him a Baal Teshuvah. Teshuvah means repentance, or to return to God. So the person who repents, as you just said, is somebody who, we don't stand on the same, on the same level, because they have this, if we grew up in, kind of religious or faithful homes, it's like sometimes it becomes a little bit too rote, and we have to inspire ourselves in a different kind of way. I want to, we'll start wrapping up over the next couple of minutes. I just, in terms of charity, and in terms of giving, not just giving back to the community, because I think we do that in the for-profit, but what are some of the types of things that you really enjoy doing, and satisfaction that you give when you're able to give charity?
So that's actually a focus of ours this year, or is going to be a focus of ours this year. We as far as our community involvement, I'm involved in a lot of community boards, organizations, 501c3 type organizations. But as far as being, I feel like this year is a year we need to recommit to being active in pouring out into some of these organizations, in more so than just in a serving, like serving on the board type way. Something we did a few years ago, we volunteered for a couple of days, took our team out, and we helped build a home for a family in need. There's an organization here. It's actually part of a larger, national organization. So a lot of people have heard of Habitat for Humanity. Yeah, and so they have a branch here in Lubbock, and they build a few homes every year for people that otherwise couldn't afford a home. And so we've done some volunteer work there, assisting with building a home, and we want to get our team together and get back involved in something of that nature to pour back into the lives of others in a more tangible way. That's something that we have not done as much in the last couple of years. We have been, goodness gracious, it's so. I'll tell you, this is part of our testimony. As a successful business, as a for us as Christians and followers of Jesus, and just we can like, I feel like the last couple of years we've fallen victim to being busy, and we've been fortunate to be busy. Our business has been blessed in that way, um, but in some way, you know, to what end, right? Yes, we are ministering to our employees. I mean, we have a faith filled environment here, um, but and we have opportunity to minister to all of the people the lives that we touch, daily, our trade partners and our suppliers. But we would like to get back to sowing into um, you know other people's lives in what you might consider the more traditional sense, being the hands and feet of Jesus in a different way, going out and actually physically touching someone's life, um, in some kind of way. And so that's a renewed focus of ours for 2025, and it's a topic of discussion that we've started, to find some areas that we can get out and do that as a team. Again, we've kind of fallen victim to being busy, and we don't want to. I don't want to let busyness be an excuse or a reason that, hey, we don't make time for others in a more tangible way.
So one of the people that I interviewed recently told me that they were consulting with different companies, and what they did was they had one day a month that every employee would go do actual volunteer work.
Mm-hmm.
And the companies that have done it have found this to be just an unbelievable ROI in terms of like job satisfaction from people and the amount that they feel dedicated to the company and wanting to grow. Yeah, so it's like that.
Yeah,
that type of thing.
I want our team to feel personally fulfilled, right? I want to contribute. I want to be able to our company to contribute to someone's personal fulfillment, and that can extend outside of the boundaries of our work, of our Monday through Friday work. And so, yeah, if that includes volunteer work, absolutely, I would love to be a part of that. Those are some of the ideas and things that we're talking about, um, implementing and giving our people the opportunity to, hey, they pour into this business, and we want to allow them the opportunity to pour into maybe something that they're passionate about. So I like that idea.
Wonderful, James. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time. And I'll end with a blessing that God should continue to bless your business, and that it should grow. And you're literally housing the people who need homes. They might not be poor, but certainly putting a roof over people's heads is a real blessing. And God should continue to bless you and bless the entire business and the entire endeavor.
Amen to that. Well, thank you, Rabbi Rami. It was a pleasure getting to talk to you today.